खण्डन भवद्बन्धन जगद्बन्धन वन्दितो जगत तारण निश्चय मानस निष्कारण भगत शरण निष्ठा भगत शरण त्याजी जाति कुल संपद तव श्रीपद भव गोष्पद वारिय प्रेमार्पण समदर्शन प्रेमार्पण समदर्शन जग जन दुख जा संपद तव श्रीपद भव गोष्पद वारियथा प्रेमार्पण समदर्शन प्रेमार्पण समदर्शन जग जन दुख जा नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनादे नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनादे मनोवचनैकाधार प्रभु मनोवचनैकाधार ज्योतिरज्योति उज्ज्वल रुदिकन्दर ज्योतिरज्योति उज्ज्वल रुदिकन्दर तुमे तम भञ्जनः प्रभु तुमे तम भञ्जनः नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनादित नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनादित मनोवचनैकाधार प्रभु मनोवचनैकाधार ज्योतिरज्योति उज्ज्वल रुदिकन्दर ज्योतिरज्योति उज्ज्वल रुदिकन्दर तुमे तम भञ्जनः प्रभु तुमे तम भञ्जनः धिदिते रङ्ग रङ्ग भङ्ग वाजे अङ्ग सङ्गमृदं धिदिते रङ्ग रङ्ग भङ्ग वाजे अङ्ग सङ्गमृदं गायिते छन्द भगत वृन्द आरती तोमा गायिते छन्द भगत वृन्द आरती तोमा जय जय आरती तोम हर हर आरती तोम शिव शिव आरती तोम खण्डन भव बन्धन जगवन्दन वन्दितो मा जय श्री गुरु महाराज जी की जय। ॐ ह्रीं ह्रीतं त्वमचलो गुणजीत् गुणेढ्या नक्तं दिवं सकरुणं तव पादपद्मं मोहं कषं बहुकृतं न भजे यतोऽहं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो भक्तिर्भगच भजनं भवभेदकारी गच्छन्त्यलं सुविपुलं गमनाय तत्त्वं वक्रोद्धृतोऽपि हृदमे न च भाति किञ्चित् तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो तेजस्तरन्ति तरसा त्वयि तृप्ततृष्णा रागे कृते हृतपथे त्वयि राम कृष्णे मर्त्यामृतं तव पदं मरणोन्विनाशम् तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो कृत्यं करोति कलुषं कुहकान्तकारी स्नान्तं शिवं सुविमलं तव नाम नाथ यस्मादहं त्वशरणो जगदेकगम्य तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। सर्वमंगल मांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरणे त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणे नमोस्तुते। सृष्टि स्थिति विनाशाना शक्ति भूते सनातनी गुणाश्रये गुणमये नारायणे नमोस्तुते। शरणागत दीनार्त परित्राण परायणे सर्वशान्ति हरे देवी नारायणे नमोस्तुते। जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय महामाई की जय। जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण देव की जय। जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी की जय।
Hello, check. Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Sure Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So we were at this particular point of this lecture, Absolute and Manifestation. The whole of this universe, therefore, is, as it were, a peculiar form. The Absolute is that ocean, while you and I and suns and stars and everything else are various waves of that ocean. And what makes the waves different? Only the form, and that form is time, space, and causation, all entirely dependent on the wave. As soon as the wave goes, they vanish. As soon as the individual gives up this Maya, it vanishes for him and he becomes free. This is the point till which we had gotten last time. And we start from here. So, the idea being this moving back, as it were, away from this framework of time, space, and causation, through, in, and through which we grasp our day-to-day reality. What is the gain? And what's the point of it? If there is no personal benefit, nobody would go around doing this. So the aim here, as he says, vanishes for him and becomes free. This freedom is the aim and end of things here. The whole struggle is to get rid of this clinging on to time, space, and causation, which are always obstacles in our way. What is the theory of evolution? What are the two factors? A tremendous potential power which is trying to express itself, and circumstances which are holding it down. The environments not allowing it to express itself. So, in order to fight with these environments, the power is taking new bodies again and again. An amoeba in the struggle gets another body and conquers some obstacles, then gets another body, and so on until it becomes man. Now, if you carry this idea to its logical conclusion, there must come a time when that power that was in the amoeba and which evolved as man will have conquered all the obstructions that nature can bring before it and will thus escape from all its environments. This idea, expressed in metaphysics, will take this form. There are two components in every action, the one the subject, the other the object. And the one aim of life is to make the subject master of the object. For instance, I feel unhappy because a man scolds me. My struggle will be to make myself strong enough to conquer the environment so that he may scold and I shall not feel. That is how we are all trying to conquer. What is meant by morality? Making the subject strong by attuning it to the absolute so that finite nature ceases to have control over us. It is a logical conclusion of our philosophy that there must come a time when we shall have conquered all the environments because nature is finite. Quite a number of things are there here. Let's pick them up one by one. First, the statement, the whole struggle is to get rid of this clinging on to time, space, and causation, which are always obstacles in our way. The problem here is not with the objective time, the objective space, the objective law of causation that we register as detached observers. The problem lies essentially in our individually being invested in particulars of space, time, and causation. What does that mean? I do such and such, expect such and such as an effect for oneself. This is the subjective rule of causation. It's appropriating effects after having invested some kind of a cause. Then there is this duration of a number of years which we call a lifetime. And the problem there is, oh, I did such and such a thing that was there in the past that has probably brought on this misery. Or such and such a thing might happen in future and I'm afraid. The problem is not with the events per se that will happen tomorrow. The problem is not with the events that have already happened in the past. The problem lies in this personal appropriation of events which we take as something that defines our existence in the here and now. Past regrets and future fears, as we've quoted from this Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam before. Instead of focusing on the work at hand, on this present moment, the mind wanders back in the past, off in the future, and creates this rigmarole of regrets and fears. Herein, this emotional investiture is the cause of the problem. Not the events themselves that have occurred in the past, not the future, not what the future will bring. Herein lies the problem. That's described in this particular passage as clinging to this space-time and causation. This framework in and through which we understand the world is the clinging to space in the form of specific objects, emotions coloring our mind from the past, from the future. That's the time aspect of it. And then doing something and expecting something as an effect, or having done something in the past and expecting something as a consequence today. This is the clinging to space, time, and causation subjectively that the issue is about, that the problem is about. So, the problem then is not with the events in the world per se, but in this subjective emotional commitment or attachment to them, to these things. So how does one get over it? And therein lies the struggle. And we usually do this piecemeal in terms of specific kinds of emotional responses we have, and tell ourselves, okay, getting angry, getting fearful, hating, allowing hatred to develop, all these things are harmful for one's mental health. Try to get rid of it. But we don't go to the root of these problems. And the root of these problems here is basically this. At a certain level, there is this framework of time, space, and causation in terms of which we understand the world, without which we cannot act. But there is no reason for us to again commit ourselves to all these sequences of actions, to these objects in space, to this flow of time emotionally. Therein lies the freedom that we have. This is what gets us caught in the various whirlpools which come out as various emotional reactions. We do not exercise this little bit of personal freedom that we have in every moment by withdrawing ourselves from this underlying framework of space-time causation and allowing things to flow by as a detached observer. The events occurring, the laws that guide them, the chain of events that form a causal sequence, the flow of time, all of that, from the point of view of a detached observer, can be beautiful, can be joyful. But the moment we say that, no, I want such and such a thing in future, or I have done such and such a thing in the past and that's going to come to me, at these moments, it's precisely at these moments that we get caught in this flow, in this vortex of space-time causation. It is this personal investment by means of emotional reactions that creates the problem, not the events per se, not space-time causation per se. This withdrawal into what? That's the solution, therefore, is what he says, is the struggle is to come out of this framework. For that, we need something more fundamental, which is basically the capacity to first look at these various things that are flowing by from the point of view of an observer, rather than as somebody who keeps on making evaluations at every moment. This is good, this is bad, this is something I want, this is something I don't want. These are the emotional reactions at every moment. But the moment we step back, we are really fixed in the present moment. And the past and the future and all these reactions, they then develop a more away perspective. I mean, they can be seen from a certain distance then. It is precisely this moving back, this seeing all of this as one would see, say, a film, or listen to a piece of music, without getting personally involved. That's where the solution lies. This is the entire struggle. Essentially catching hold of that one aspect of our being which is indisputable, the one thing in terms of which we understand everything else, namely this present moment, namely this present point of time. Our bodies and minds have continually evolved throughout our lives. We can't hold on to any of that. But this present moment has been there at every point of those things. So catching hold of this will mean that this flow of life goes on, leaves us untouched. This present moment, therefore, is to become the focus of our attention. All practice is aimed at this particular thing. Once one manages to focus on the present moment, these notions of birth, death, recycling, etc., etc., all of them become completely secondary, unimportant. This one thing which is there for free at every point of our existence, is the one thing that is completely true, completely reliable. But instead, we try to seek permanence in the impermanent, in something which is impermanent by nature. Anything caught in the framework of space-time causation is impermanent by nature, almost by definition. Anything that changes with respect to time cannot be permanent. Anything that is caught in this framework of causation, cause and effect relationships, is changing, cannot be permanent. Something that is seen physically in the world changes with time, cannot be permanent. What is? This existence at the present moment, with respect to which we understand all this. This is the locus of permanence. What we want when we say we want permanence is really this sense of the present moment, unfettered by time, unfettered by causation. That is really what we want when we say we want something permanent. But we keep on, and this is the irony of the situation. We seek it in the midst of something that is impermanent. So therein lies the struggle. We are habituated. There's no reason for this apart from the fact that we have created a habit for ourselves of thinking in terms of everything as events in space-time, in the space-time causation framework. Because that's the way our minds are built. But, and here is the source of hope, in and through all this, there is this present moment, the one indisputable fact. Catch hold of it, problem solved. And this particular aspect of our being, something that we don't focus on in our day-to-day lives, is generally something that is told to us as a kind of a practice, because our minds are habituated to thinking in terms of things that are changeful rather than the permanent. But at this moment, what is permanent is this moment. Can we not focus on that? Which means this present situation that is there around me, can I not focus on that itself? Then the change starts moving into the horizon of awareness. Slowly it becomes less important. The present moment starts developing greater importance, greater value. The human being can't think except in terms of a purpose. This purpose is something very subjective. And so it is giving ourselves this higher purpose, culminating, which is basically something like telling ourselves, okay, this is what we want ultimately, that will satisfy us. Again, it's a seeking of permanence. As soon as you say something like, this is an ultimate thing that I want, what one is seeking is permanence. It could be joy, it could be knowledge, it could be just plain existence. But the locus of that is not something mystical hidden in some treetop. It is there, and it is to be hunted in the here and now. It is to be sought in the here and now. So how do we go about doing it? By focusing on the job at hand. Really, all the things that are done in the world are done best when we focus on the job at hand, forgetting what will happen from it in the future, forgetting what are the things that have come to it that have led me to do a particular act in the present moment. Say, for example, there are these very fine batsmen. So one used to say, when Virendra Sehwag used to play, that he plays with an uncluttered mind. What does it really mean? Means basically the ball that comes, he faces, and he is going to play the ball exactly in as something that is to be played in the here and now. Once that ball is over, he might have made a mess of it, or he might have hit it for runs. Once that's over, it's over. He comes back, faces the next ball with the same alertness, same clarity. This lack of cluttering, not thinking about what had happened in the previous ball, not worrying about what will happen in the next ball, is really holding the mind in the present. The best sportsmen have it. The best scientists have it. The best artists have it. Best social workers have it. This is all that is involved. It's not something that is specific to any theology. It is not something that is specific to any religion. It is not something that is specific to any particular way of life. It is just something that could be a common possession of all human beings. It does not need to be particularly glorious action either. It is the present action. It is the action that we are doing at the present moment. Doing that with full alertness, full attention is all that is required. So this is the struggle to come out of this framework of space-time and causation into the here and now. The Kenopanishad, as it says, Pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam hi vindate. Pratibodha, in and through every act of awareness, one seeks this immortality. What is mortal is something that is caught within this framework of time. But that on which that framework lies is what one is seeking. That is the locus of freedom, that is the locus of bliss, that is the locus of knowledge. Let us take, for instance, the moment of discovery of a certain fact. Could be in a scientist's life, could be in an artist's life, could be in the lives of any ordinary individual. We've all experienced it. We've been concerned about a certain thing, we've been thinking about something, and then suddenly there's a flash of clarity, and we immediately understand. It's really happening at every moment. As soon as I focus my attention in front of me, I say, okay, there is this camera, there is this room in front of me. This is an act of cognition, an act of clear awareness. It's happening to us all the time. It happens in this more pronounced way when people have been struggling with, say, a problem, trying to find a way out, and then suddenly something in the mind flashes and the solution emerges. And at that point of time, there's complete clarity. This flash, what in today is called the aha moment. The one moment at which we say, oh yes, this is what is true about it, is really what is indicated by this passage, this Pratibodha Viditam. Can we cultivate that clarity? Basically, see, when we want to cultivate something, we ought to have some kind of prior experience of it. Otherwise, what is it that we'll be referring to? So take this little kind of thing, which is fairly pronounced in the lives of most people, pick out that and say, okay, this is the kind of clear mind that we want to be there with us all the time. Not the emotional muddle, not the fear, anger, hatred, but this clarity. Can we hold on to it? That's also a state of mind, but it's truer because it's without bias, without prejudice. And catching hold of it, this other clutter starts fading away. All right. So this was one of the points that he has made in this lecture. Let's come to another point that he did make here, and it could be ambiguous, so we want to repeat it and explain this one more time. Says, an amoeba in the struggle gets another body and conquers some obstacles, then gets another body, and so on until it becomes man. See, what is the principle that he is trying to explain here? Not that there was some particular individual which was there in the amoeba, and that particular individual now becomes a 2-celled creature, and that particular individual then becomes a 15-celled creature, finally becomes a zillion-celled creature called human beings. That's not what is meant here. So, because usually what happens is that we think of ourselves as individuals. This leads to this kind of thinking that, yeah, an amoeba is an individual. That individual now develops from amoeba to a paramecium or whatever, some multi-cell sponge, etc., etc. But that's not what is meant. Essentially, what it says is that there are natural processes in place which offer obstructions to any particular individual. It could be an amoeba, it could be a human being. We cannot do as we like in society at every moment of our existence. This gives us a certain level of sense of bondage, a certain sense of lack of freedom. The same thing with the amoeba. It has to go around hunting for its own food, hunting for something in order to ensure that it goes on existing. These are limitations to every individual's existence. So there is this seeking in the amoeba, in the human being, to overcome these limitations. So here, amoeba, human being are placeholders, symbols for this one common aspect of all our existences. There is something in us that seeks something larger, but at the same time, our bodies, minds, the societies we live in hem us in, hold us to certain restricting constraints. Then the solution is to seek from there first a clear understanding, a knowledge of what it is that is restricting us, and then seeking within ourselves the solution, the answer By doing what? And there he gives the answer. By tuning ourselves to the Absolute. The solution is never found in the temporal, in this space-time causation. The solution is to be sought within, in our consciousness. Basically, such and such things happen to me, and I am overcome. I do not have freedom to act in certain moments. These restrictions make us aware of our lack of freedom. Then take a step back and ask, what is it in these external situations that are affecting my freedom? First. Then that is an understanding of only external events. But is that all? What can we control? Can we control those events, and is it really those events that are affecting us? The physical events? And when we try introspecting, analyzing, we understand that the event itself has neither good nor bad in it. What is creating this lack of freedom is our personal reaction. Not the external action, but this individual personal reaction. That is something which is within our hands. That is the point at which I become involved in this play of space-time and causation. Which means I allow myself at that stage to get in to this chain of events. Can we stop it there? Can we just become aware of that reaction? Just becoming aware of that reaction itself calms the reaction. And we ask, is this reaction that I am offering, is it at all necessary? Does it have any real value? Why would I need to get angry in a certain situation? Is it going to help events? Is it going to allow me to develop anything? And then the moment we understand, no, there is no point in such a reaction, then this reaction itself loses value. This is what Mithyatva is about. When the Vedantin says Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, it is this subjective notion of the world which loses value, losing its value. That is what Mithyatva is about. That means there is nothing permanent in it. There is no point in reacting to this situation in such and such a way. It's a clear, rational thought which is essentially something that calms the mind, allows it to withdraw. This practice is the practice first of analysis and two, detachment. In Sanskrit, these go under the name of Viveka Vairagya, dispassion. Just as there's one thing called a passion, there's the opposite of it, which is called dispassion. It is this stepping back that's the struggle. Again, he says later that a person scolds me and I feel bad. But then how do I get over it? I say, oh, I can avoid such and such a person, etc., etc. Doesn't work. It's not a long-term solution. What works is making the subject strong, so that all this might come and it will not affect. This gives the strength. This gives the strength of peace. See, usually one thinks of non-violence as something that is, oh, somebody has come and beaten me, I turn the other cheek, etc., etc., some kind of sign of weakness. That's not what it is. That if it is out of weakness, it's only cowardice. There's no strength there. But it is not allowing the mind to burst into waves, restraining it without fear or favor. Therein lies strength. The greatest workers of peace in the world, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, so on, they would not have been able to progress where they did towards peace without this inner core strength of fearlessness. Aggression invariably covers up some fearfulness. The strongest and most fearless people are always calm. In another place in Vivekananda's writings, he talks about Krishna and the battlefield, how he pictures him, somebody who is holding the reins of the horse with great strength. Great strength. But face is absolutely calm. Which means there's complete commitment to the action itself, but no emotional investiture. There is no dissipating energy through the nerves, through this and that, which just break up the system. This is holding on to the moment almost literally. We'll come back to this next time. For today, let's stop here. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.